So there's this lady named Kamala Harris. She did an interview for the first time, and let's see how it goes. I'm sure as leftists, we're all going to be very happy with this politician we've definitely been putting on a pedestal since Biden dropped out, and I'm sure no one feels bad about it whatsoever. Running to be president, by the way. Let's find out.
Madam Vice President, Governor Walz, thank you so much for sitting down with me and bringing the bus. The bus tour is well underway here in Georgia.
Why would you thank them for bringing the bus? Just right off the bat, why do you care if they brought the bus or not? What is the bus adding to the interview? Why is she a bus enthusiast? Is she just really excited about big buses? It's called small talk. This is an interview. You're not small talking in an interview.
You have less time to make your case to voters than any candidate in modern American history. The voters are really eager to hear what your plans are. If you are elected, what would you do on day one in the White House?
Well, there are a number of things. I will tell you, first and foremost, one of my highest priorities is to do what we can to support and strengthen the middle class. When I look at the aspirations, the goals, the ambitions of the American people, I think that people are ready for a new way forward, in a way that generations of Americans have been.
All of you are telling me right now is that you are all bad at small talk. That's all I'm getting when you're like, this is what you're supposed to open a conversation. No, it's not. When have you ever thanked someone for bringing their car to an interview? No, bullshit. Bullshit. I'm calling bullshit on that.
Been fueled by hope and by optimism. I think, sadly, in the last decade, we have had in the former president someone who has really been pushing an agenda and an environment that is about diminishing the character and the strength of who we are as Americans, really dividing our nation, and I think people are ready to turn the page on that.
So what would you do day one?
Day one, it's going to be about, one, implementing my plan for what I call an opportunity economy. I've already laid out a number of proposals in that regard.
What does that mean?
Which include what we're going to do to bring down the cost of everyday goods, what we're going to do to invest in America's small businesses, what we're going to do to invest in families, for example, extending the child tax credit to $6,000 for families for the first year of their child's life, to help them buy a car seat, to help them buy baby clothes, a crib. There's the work that we're going to do that is about investing in the American family around affordable housing, a big issue in our country right now. So there are a number of things on day one.
What about you?
Well, I'm excited about this agenda too. As I said,
That's such a shitty question to ask a vice president. What policies are you going to implement on day one, Mr. Perhaps future vice president? And it's just like, I don't know. I'll probably sit there and like do some PR, I guess. Like my main job is just waiting for the president to die. So
idea of inspiring America to what can be, and I think many of these things that the vice president's proposing are things that we share in values. And the child tax credit is one we know that reduces childhood poverty by a third. We did.
And I am guessing that they're both really tired. I think right now they're on like a multi-day tour of Georgia, so like they're probably a bit exhausted.
In Minnesota, to have a federal partner in this, unbelievable, I think, in the impact that we can make.
You talked about, you call it the opportunity economy. You are well aware that right now many Americans are struggling. There's a crisis of affordability. One of your campaign themes is we're not going back. But I wonder what you say to voters who do want to go back when it comes to the economy specifically, because their groceries were less expensive, housing was more affordable when Donald Trump was president.
Well, let's start with the fact that when Joe Biden and I came in office, during the height of a pandemic, we saw over 10 million jobs were lost. Literally, we were all tracking the numbers. Hundreds of people a day were dying because of COVID. The economy had crashed. In large part, all of that because of mismanagement by Donald Trump.
That's true. That's an important component of answering this question, though I think more the purpose of it was what are you going to do about it? You know, like part of the reason why housing costs and food costs were low is because the government was giving people money. Are you going to get us the Biden checks that never came?
Of that crisis. When we came in, our highest priority was to do what we could to rescue America. And today, we know that we have inflation at under 3%. A lot of our policies have led to the reality that America recovered faster than any wealthy nation around the world. But you are right. Prices, in particular for groceries, are still too high. The American people know it, I know it, which is why my agenda includes what we need to do to bring down the price of groceries.
Which is to smack those distributors and the grocery chains that have admitted to price gouging, right? Yeah, that were price gouging on purpose because they could while lying about it being inflation. Yeah.
For example, dealing with an issue like price gouging. What we need to do to extend the child tax credit to help young families be able to take care of their children in their most formative years.
To be fair, the child tax credit is something that needs to come back, and also the policy of expanding it to $6,000 is great. But honestly, we should probably just expand the child tax credits to $6,000 for every family. You know, like why limit it to newborns? Like, expand that shit for children of all ages, man.
What we need to do to bring down the cost of housing. My proposal includes what would be a tax credit of $25,000 for first-time home buyers, so they can just have enough to put a down payment on a home.
And like, this is a nice policy. I like this policy, but it's nowhere near enough. Even with like a $25,000 like loan assistance program, that's not going to help most people get houses. It will help some people get houses. It's not going to help most people get houses, and it's not going to help the vast majority of people who rent, you know?
Which is part of the American dream and their aspiration, but do it in a way that allows them to actually get on the path to achieving that goal and that dream.
So you have been vice president for 3.5 years.
Yeah.
The steps that you're talking about now, why haven't you done them already?
Because she's... Is political literacy so dead that, like, people don't know that the vice president can't enact policy? Like, do people know that? Like, the vice president isn't the president. The vice president can't do anything except in very niche bureaucratic or administrative roles. She can't get these policies passed.
Well, first of all, we had to recover as an economy, and we have done that. I'm very proud of the work that we have done that has brought inflation down to less than 3%. The work that we have done to cap the cost of insulin at $35 a month for seniors. Donald Trump said he was going to do a number of things, including allowing Medicare to negotiate drug prices. Never happened. We did it. So now, as I travel in the state of Georgia and around our country, the number of seniors that have benefited. I was in Nevada recently, a grandmother who showed me her receipts. And before we capped the cost of insulin for seniors at $35 a month, she was paying hundreds of dollars, up to thousands of dollars a month for her insulin. She's not doing that any longer.
You maintain Bidenomics is a success.
I maintain that when we do the work of bringing down prescription medication for the American people, including capping the cost of the annual cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000, when we do what we...
I do think that question was pretty weighted and pretty disingenuous as well.
Did in the first year of being in office to extend the child tax credit so that we cut child poverty in America by over 50%. When we do...
Until the child tax credit lapsed. Thanks, Republicans.
What we have done to invest in the American people and bringing manufacturing back to the United States so that we created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs, bringing business back to America. What we have done to improve the supply chain so we're not relying on foreign governments to supply American families with their basic needs, I'll say that that's good work. There's more to do, but that's good work.
I want to get some clarity on where you stand on some key policy issues. Energy is a big one. When you were in Congress, you supported the Green New Deal. And in 2019, you said, quote, "There is no question I'm in favor of banning fracking." Fracking, as you know, is a pretty big issue.
Like, I know a lot of forces in our society are aligned against her being able to give a good answer here. But imagine just for like a brief moment with me that she was able or willing to say something along the lines of, hey, we want to bring manufacturing jobs back to America. The best way to do that is to invest in green manufacturing in America, ban these fossil fuel industries, and then provide people assistance to transition into manufacturing green energy. We could do that. We could actually put together programs to facilitate like job transfers from people who are getting screwed over by closed fracking wells or oil fields. We could transition those workers into an equally lucrative manufacturing industry and set ourselves up for future success, not just in the coming decades, but possibly in the coming centuries. And instead, I'm guessing that she's going to go and say something along the lines of, well, I've reevaluated my position on that, and we won't be ending all fracking. In fact, we'll be expanding the number of wells we have.
In your must-win state of Pennsylvania,
Sure.
Do you still want to ban fracking?
No, and I made that clear on the debate stage in 2020, that I would not ban fracking. As vice president, I did not ban fracking. As president, I will not ban fracking.
Our planet is literally dying. We are in the process of rendering vast swaths of the planet uninhabitable. And honestly, like, fracking is a small part of like making things better. Like, if we eliminated fracking, it wouldn't obviously solve the entire problem, but we need to start doing these things before we die, because otherwise our children and our children's children and their children are going to be paying the price for it. People in my generation are going to grow old enough to start seeing the worst effects of this. I hate all of these old people in power, or at least older people in power, who just don't get this, man.
In 2019, I believe, at a town hall, you said you were asked, would you commit to implementing a federal ban on fracking on your first day in office? And you said,
Pennsylvania oil workers need jobs? That's true. Too bad I didn't just finish saying something that would be relevant to that.
there's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So yes. So it changed in that campaign?
In 2020, I made very clear where I stand. We are in 2024, and I've not changed that position, nor will I going forward. I kept my word, and I will keep my word.
What made you change that position at the time?
Well, let's be clear. My values have not changed. I believe it is very important that we take seriously what we must do to guard against what is a clear crisis in terms of the climate. And to do that, we can do what we have accomplished thus far. The Inflation Reduction Act, what we have done to invest, by my calculation, over probably $1 trillion over the next 10 years, investing in a clean energy economy. What we've already done, creating over 300,000 new clean energy jobs. That tells me, from my experience as vice president, we can do it without banning fracking. In fact, Dana, I cast...
On the one hand, like, this isn't surprising. I told you guys weeks ago, don't put these people up on pedestals, right? On the other hand, I think that this might, in a way, be a good thing. Specifically in the way that she's spineless. You know, I don't believe her when she says her position on this can't be changed. Because we've seen her position on this change. And I think that if it becomes politically expedient for her to ban fracking, she will try and do it. I.e., if we put enough pressure on her, she'll break. She doesn't have a spine. That's kind of a good thing.
That actually increased leases for fracking as vice president. So I'm very clear about where I stand.
And was
Boy, did I call that one or what? Actually, we expanded how much we were killing the planet. Oh, good. Good.
There's some policy or scientific data that you saw that you said, oh, okay, I get it now.
What I have seen is that we can grow and we can increase a thriving clean energy economy without banning fracking.
Okay.
A thriving clean energy economy while still digging up the oily remains of our dear deceased ancestors and then burning them en masse into the atmosphere. Yeah, okay, sure. Sure. Part 2, baby.
Another issue, big one, is immigration. As Vice President, you were tasked with addressing the root causes of migration in southern countries and
Northern part of Central America.
the northern
in
part
particular, yeah.
of Central America that affects the southern border of the U.S. During the Biden-Harris administration, there were record numbers of illegal border crossings. Why did the Biden-Harris administration wait 3.5 years to implement sweeping asylum restrictions?
Why did it take you so long to start treating these people more like animals?
The root causes work that I did as vice president, that I was asked to do by the president, has actually resulted in a number of benefits, including historic investments by American businesses in that region. The number of immigrants coming from that region has actually reduced since we began that work. But I will say this, that Joe Biden and I and our administration worked with members of the United States Congress on an immigration issue that is very significant to the American people and to our security, which is the border. And through bipartisan work.
The issue with that Robber ad said is that, like, that's a solution when we have a couple centuries to work with. You know, that's a solution where it's like, oh yeah, we can afford to wait 50 years while we slowly transition from like fossil fuels to electrics. We don't really have that luxury unless we're just willing to just outright say, like, it's fine if we lose half of Florida and most of Louisiana. You know, like, if that's the case, if we're willing to pay the price of like cities being wiped off the face of the earth and like mass migrative movements within the United States itself, like, that won't lead to any like lasting political turmoil because the United States famously handles displaced people very, very well.
Including some of the most conservative members of the United States Congress, a bill was crafted, which we supported, which I support, and Donald Trump got word of this bill that would have contributed to securing our border, and because he believes that it would not have helped him politically, he told his folks in Congress, don't put it forward. He killed the bill. A border security bill that would have put 1,500 more agents on the border. And let me tell you something, the border...
We're actually much tougher on the border than Republicans is not the winning strat here. You're not gonna out-Trump Trump. I like, he's willing to go out there and say, like, something along the lines, we're gonna put a man on Jupiter in 5 years if I'm president. Like, it doesn't matter if it's logistically impossible. He's gonna take a better position on it than you. He's gonna lie.
And I'm sure in large part because they knew they were working around the clock, and 1,500 more agents would help them. That bill would have allowed us to increase seizures of fentanyl. Ask any community
I will say that this probably all plays very well with the liberal base.
in America that has been devastated by fentanyl, what passing that bill would have done to address.
She doesn't need Republicans. We literally don't need Republicans. Like, you're not going to... I'm sorry. Do you think there are any Republicans who are like, ah, yes, Kamala Harris is much tougher on the border than Donald Trump? No! The median voter doesn't know shit about shit. They literally don't know anything about this. The median like Republican voters look at her and they're like, oh, she's a woman. Clearly her ovaries make her weak. Like, that's where the median voter's head is at. Then they can, if it plays to the liberal base, then they can go to the Minecraft Nether forever. Yeah, liberals are bad. The issue that we run into as leftists is that liberals are the easiest ones for us to move over to our side. And the other issue that we run into with leftists is that we need them to avert fascism, which is deeply, deeply unfortunate because they're spineless. This is why I made a video a couple weeks ago telling you all, don't put them up on pedestals, because they are liberals. And at the end of the day, they aren't leftists. And like, yeah, I'm gonna vote for her too. Because lesser of two evils, I genuinely think that that's basically the only calculus that matters in a two-party duopoly. Like, I'm gonna do everything I can to get her elected, but she's not making my job easier.
Their concern and a pain that they've
So you would-
experienced.
So you would push that legislation again? I just want to
Not
ask
only
about,
push it, I will make sure that it comes to my desk and I would sign it.
just one other question about something that you said in 2019 when you first ran. There was a debate. You raised your hand when asked whether or not the border should be decriminalized. Do you still believe that?
I believe there should be consequence. We have laws.
Why is the framing, her framing is so bad in this shot? Like, get more of her head in here. She looks tiny.
That have to be followed
weird.
and enforced, that address and deal with people who cross our border illegally, and there should be consequence. And let's be clear, in this race, I'm the only person who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations who traffic in guns, drugs, and human beings. I'm the only person in this race who actually served.
Well, to be fair, Amber Brains, she's not pulling us even farther right. This is where Biden was as well. Like, on the whole, she's better than Joe Biden on every conceivable issue. But and I think that we can move her on every conceivable issue, unlike Biden, who is ideologically attached to genociding everyone in Gaza.
A border state as Attorney General to enforce our laws, and I would enforce our laws as president going forward. I recognize the problem.
Generally speaking, how should voters look at some of the changes that you've made, that you've explained some of here in your policy? Is it because you have more experience now and you've learned more about the information? Is it because you were running for president in a Democratic primary? And should they feel comfortable and confident that what you're saying now is going to be your policy moving forward?
Dana, I think the most important and most significant aspect of my policy perspective and decisions is my values have not changed. You mentioned the Green New Deal. I have always believed, and I have worked on it, that the climate crisis is real, that it is an urgent matter to which we should apply metrics that include holding ourselves to deadlines around time. We did that with the Inflation Reduction Act. We have set goals for the United States of America and by extension the globe around when we should meet certain standards for reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, as an example. That value has not changed. My value around what we need to do to secure our border, that value has not changed. I spent 2 terms as the Attorney General of California prosecuting transnational criminal organizations, violations of American laws regarding the passage, illegal passage of guns, drugs, and human beings across our border. My values have not changed. So that is the reality of it. In 4 years of being vice president, I'll tell you, one of the aspects to your point is traveling the country extensively. I mean, I'm here in Georgia. I think somebody told me 17 times since I've been vice president in Georgia alone. I believe it is important to build consensus, and it is important to find a common place of understanding of where we can actually solve problems.
On that note, you had a lot of Republican speakers at the convention. Will you appoint a Republican to your cabinet?
Yes, I would.
Anyone
Yes,
in
I
mind?
would. No one in particular.
Okay. My gut reaction is no, fuck them. But for a liberal who's trying to seem like a reasonable person to the median voter in our country, the median voter really likes the idea of bipartisanship because the median voter is very unintelligent. So maybe this is an answer dedicated to that real middle ground type of person. My instinctive response here is that she should have just said, no. What a silly question. No. Like, this is like, would you consider appointing a conservative judge to the Supreme Court? Like, no. We're in this game to win it. When you win the game, you don't, I don't know, say, actually, the other team gets our no, that's not how it works. Liberals are painfully bad at wielding power.
Mine, we got 68 days to go with this election, so I'm not putting the cart before the horse, but I would. I think it's really important. I have spent my career inviting diversity of opinion. I think it's important to have people at the table when some of the most important decisions are being made that have different views, different experiences. And I think it would be to the benefit.
Yeah, when we fight, we win, but also, our opponent wins too. No, fuck them.
Of the American public to have a member of my cabinet who was a Republican.
I want to ask you about your opponent, Donald Trump.
Okay.
I was a little bit surprised. People might be surprised to hear that you have never interacted with him, met him face to face. That's going to change soon. But what I want to ask you about is what he said last month. He suggested that you happened to turn black recently for political purposes, questioning a core part of your identity.
Yeah.
Any?
Same old tired playbook. Next question, please.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay. Let's talk about some form.
This is smart. I think that one of the smarter aspects of her campaign has been sidestepping issues of identity or just leaving them unmentioned, really. I think this was one of the big problems the Hillary Clinton campaign ran into. It got really heavily invested in first woman president. Vote for the first woman president. First woman president. It got real hung up on that. I think it's actually been quite smart for her to basically not mention it and just leave it unsaid. And also it's smart of her to not engage with these really hollow questions.
Foreign policy issues that would be on your plate if you become commander-in-chief. President Biden has tried unsuccessfully.
No, little morphine Annie. Good. That's good. That just means you got a good head on your shoulders and understand how liberals be.
To end the war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. He's been doing it for months and months, along with you. Would you do anything differently? For example, would you withhold some U.S. weapons shipments to Israel? That's what a lot of people on the progressive left want you to do.
Let me be very clear. I am unequivocal and unwavering in my commitment to Israel's defense and its ability to defend itself. And that's not going to change. But let's take a step back. October 7th, 1,200 people were massacred. Many young people who were simply attending a music festival. Women were horribly raped. As I said then, I say today, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters. Far too many innocent...
In what way? In what way does it matter? This is my question here. How it defends itself matters. Okay. So if it defends itself in a unacceptable way, how are you going to make that matter? Right? That's a fair question. How are you going to enforce this when Israel goes too far? Liberals still aren't ready for that? Yeah, probably not. But you know what? I think that she really has to get over that. On this topic in particular, I think something around 70% of Democrats support some form of arms embargo. I think it's crazy the polling numbers on this particular issue, and she still can't do it, which to me indicates and further validates kind of what I've been talking about as vice president, she really can't countermand what the president is saying and doing if she even disagreed in the first place. And if she does disagree, again, I don't think we're going to get indications of that until a week out minimum. A week out from the general election minimum. If not until she gets elected. Because there's, again, I've brought this up in the past, but there's the problem with the fact that Benjamin Netanyahu is fucking crazy. And if he gets wind that the United States might cease supporting him, should Kamala Harris win, he's going to absolutely do everything in his power to trigger a wider war that will pull the U.S. into it prior to her getting elected. I think that's a very, very real consequence of her words on these stages. So I think that's a real issue. I also think the issue of AIPAC dropping $100 million into like the election is also very real. I think that in the game of realpolitik here, even if she agreed with arms embargo, which again, there are a lot of indications from behind the scenes that she is, but even if she did have that belief, I don't think she could say it in this interview. I don't think there's a way she could clearly communicate it to literally anybody outside of like her inner circle. All of that being said, I also think that like this is incredibly disheartening. Like these answers are terrible and give all indications that she will like follow Biden's lead on this issue. And I can't blame people for getting mad at it, and I can't blame people for not having like hinged their hopes on a very slim possibility that she's just playing things very close to the chest. Yeah, exactly, Noriku. She could stop playing defense for Biden to the extent that she is, and she's not doing that. So like I don't blame people for being upset. I don't blame people here for absolutely not buying this.
Palestinians have been killed. And we have got to get a deal done. We were in Doha. We have to get a deal done. This war must end.
In the meantime,
and we must get a deal that is about getting the hostages out.
Yeah, but like that's kind of the thing. Part of getting a deal would be putting pressure on Israel to make a deal. That's part of how diplomacy works. You know, you pressure people into new positions. Like that's the entirety of the game. You talk to people and convince them, or you play realpolitik and you pressure them in other ways.
I've met with the families of the American hostages. Let's get...
Yeah, one thing that is going on right now is an unprecedented invasion of the West Bank. It's the largest in over 20 years. I believe dozens of Palestinians have been killed in the West Bank, which, by the way, is illegally occupied. And the Biden administration has done absolutely nothing about it. You know, apparently the Leahy laws just don't apply. They don't exist anymore.
the hostages out. Let's get the ceasefire done.
But no change in policy in terms of arms and so forth.
No, we have to get a deal done.
Yeah, no change in policy related to arms. Don't look at the Leahy laws, which are about, which are supposed to trigger when there are, mass infringements on human rights going on. And if the Leahy law triggers, are supposed to bar shipments of military aid to a country. But just real quick here. In case you're like, well, what has Israel done that would trigger the Leahy law? Like they're just doing a wholly unjust war in Gaza. Like they're just putting down the terrorists. What on earth would trigger the Leahy laws? I mean, it's not like they're celebrating torture and rape or anything. Like it's not like that's happening in Israel. No, sir. Anyway, here's a clip from a late night show.
הערב בתוכניתנו לוחם כוח 100 מאיר בן שטרית שהתמודד עם הנוח'בות בשדה תימן ועכשיו מתמודד עם האשמות קשות וכולנו רוצים לשמוע מה יש לו להגיד וגם יהיה... תגיד לי, למה אתה עומד ככה?
כי גם אני יכול להיות כוח 100, תראה את הגודל שלו.
אתה?
לא בדיוק 100.
לא.
אז 30.
30 בקושי, ערב 10:30, תבואו.
פתחי את שי, הערב ב-10:30.
You'd be forgiven if you don't understand what's going on here. Or who this guy is in the middle and why he seems particularly Rizless. But that would be because the man standing in the middle here has been on camera only once before. At an Israeli detention camp. Raping Palestinian prisoners. He is, in fact, one of the Israeli soldiers who was caught on camera raping detainees while his fellow soldiers used their shields to try and cover the act from the camera. And in fact is one of the soldiers who Israeli settlers raided a prison to get freed. And now he is doing a press circuit on Israeli television where they are championing him as a hero. And again, I cannot stress this enough. That he, this is how it's how it's captioned here. Fighter Meir Ben Shitrit who was investigated on suspicion of rape, is coming tonight to open everything about the Sadeh Yamana affair. Cool stuff. Cool stuff. Well, that guy's he was almost convicted of rape before a mob broke into the prison demanding his release, and he was subsequently released. Oh, well, let's let him do a press tour. What does he have to say for himself? Did he do those rapes? Yes or no answers only. Like, it's actually disgusting in the extreme. And honestly, this alone, the fact that there are now like military rapists and torturers doing press tours in Israel, that alone should trigger the Leahy laws. That alone should cause us to stop sending weapons until we ourselves investigate what's happening. Because right now, the State Department line on everything that's been going on in Israel and in Gaza and the West Bank is, well, we're waiting for Israel to investigate it. It's been over 200 days since Hind was killed. A little girl named Hind was murdered in an ambulance while awaiting rescue. And every week, the State Department of the United States is asked about it by reporters. And every time they're like, oh, we'll look into it. I'm sure the Israeli government is investigating. And we have had no update on whatever that investigation was. In the span of 1 or 2 weeks, we had rolling op-eds in the New York Times about October 7th, but somehow it takes more than 200 days for the Israeli military to investigate the wanton murder of a child by their military forces. And something tells me that even if they did actually investigate, I don't trust their findings because, again, they have military prisoners who are being tortured and raped, and then the people doing it are doing press tours. How can you possibly trust the findings of a country like that? But no, we can't stop the weapons. That would ruin a great situation for the arms manufacturers.
Anna, we have to get a deal done. When you look at the significance of this to the families, to the people who are living in that region, a deal is not only the right thing to do to end this war, but will unlock so much of what must happen next. I remain committed since I've been on October 8 to what we must do to work toward a two-state solution, where Israel is secure and in equal measure, the Palestinians have security and self-determination and
yeah, damn. I wonder who's really making that difficult for them right now.
dignity.
I despise these answers. I knew I was going to, so it's not surprising.
Governor
but
Walz, the country is just starting to get to know you. I want to ask you a question about how you've described your service in the National Guard. You said that you carried weapons in war, but you have never deployed actually in a war zone. A campaign official said that
yeah, you can't stop a fight if one side of the fight continues to punch the other guy in the face. Have you ever seen a fight diffused that way, where one guy is just whoa, guys, we just need to talk. And like one guy is like laying unconscious while the other is like on top, just beating him in the face, saying, "Yeah, we are talking right now." Blood dripping off the knuckles. Like that's the analogy we're at here.
You misspoke, did you?
Well, first of all, I'm incredibly proud. I've done 24 years of wearing the uniform of this country. Equally proud of my service in a public school
Yeah,
class.
this interview sucks, by the way. Like every single one of these questions is like an attempt to gotcha.
Classroom, whether it's Congress or the governor. My record speaks for itself, but I think people are coming to get to know me. I speak like they do. I speak candidly. I wear my emotions on my sleeves, and I speak especially passionately about our children being shot in schools and around guns. So I think people know me. They know who I am. They know where my heart is. And again, my record has been out there for over 40 years to speak for itself.
And the idea that you said that you were in war,
Yeah.
did you misspeak as the campaign has said?
Yeah, I said we were talking about, in this case, this was after a school shooting, the ideas of carrying these weapons of war. And my wife, the English teacher, told me my grammar's not always correct. But again, if it's not this, it's an attack on my children for showing love for me, or it's an attack on my dog. I'm not going to do that. And the one thing I'll never do is I'll never demean an
Oh yeah, one of the attacks on Tim Walz was that he posted a picture of his old dog and then like several months later posted a picture with a new dog and said like, "Oh man, insert old dog's name, really would have loved it here." And people are saying, "Oh, you just got a new dog, huh?" And it's like, yeah, that's sometimes how it works when a dog dies.
other member's service in any way. I never have, and I never will.
I just, one other question, because again, this is all new.
They literally have nothing on Tim Walz. It's actually pretty funny.
I mean, this was not, however many days ago, this was not on either of your bingo cards, especially yours. You had to clarify that you had said that you and your wife used IVF, but it turned out you used a different kind of fertility in order to have children. And then when you ran for Congress in 2006, your campaign repeatedly made false statements about a 1995 arrest for drunk and reckless driving. What do you say to voters
Citation needed.
who aren't sure whether they can take you at your word?
Well, I've been very public. I think they can see my students come out, former folks I've served with, and they vouch for me. I certainly own my mistakes when I make them. The one thing I'll tell you is I wished in this country wouldn't have to do this. I spoke about our infertility issues because it's hell, and families know this. And I spoke about the treatments that were available to us that had those beautiful children there. That's quite a contrast in folks that are trying to take those rights away from us. And so I think people know who I am. They know that record. They've seen that.
Oh, you talked about trying to get pregnant with a child, but you didn't actually use specifically IVF treatments. What do you have to say to that, you lying liar? Like, what? Well, we had fertility issues, so we wanted to have all the options available to us.
Taught thousands of students. I've been out there, and I won't apologize for speaking passionately, whether it's guns in schools or protecting of reproductive rights. The contrast could not be clearer between what we're running against. The vice president's position on this has been clear, and I think most Americans get it if you've been through that. I don't think they're cutting hairs on IVF
Well, the
or
dog
IUI.
didn't die,
I think what they're
even
cutting
better.
hairs on is an abortion ban and the ability to be able to deny families the chance to have a beautiful child.
Vice President Harris, you were a very staunch defender of President Biden's capacity to serve another 4 years. Right after the debate, you insisted that President Biden is extraordinarily
called IVF
strong.
when it's
Given
from the
where we
IVF
are
region
now,
of France.
do you have any regrets about what you told the American people?
No, not at all. Not at all. I have served with President Biden for almost 4 years now, and I'll tell you, it's one of the greatest honors of my career, truly. He cares so deeply about the American people. He is so smart and
Why
loyal
do we
to
have
the
to
American
dedicate
people. And I
any
have
portion
spent
of the interview to this?
hours upon hours with him, be it in the Oval Office or the Situation Room. He has the intelligence, the commitment, and the judgment.
I want to hear Dana Bash ask Donald Trump about every single time Donald Trump has said something incorrect. I want her to pull that same level of care that she has for the truth with Donald Trump.
And disposition that I think the American people have.
Yeah, I get it. I get that this is for the Biden diehards, but like, this is like an entire interview for them and for literally everyone who agrees with them. Like, there's nothing in here for leftists or progressives to get excited about. And after the DNC, I was really hoping for something that would even the keel of the boat, you know? Like, I was hoping we'd get a little bit more, like, back to some equilibrium, but it looks like we're just not going to get that.
Rightly deserve in their president. By contrast, the former president has none of that. And so, one, I am so proud to have served as vice president to Joe Biden. And two, I am so proud to be running with Tim Walz.
Well, maybe leftists aren't a reliable voting bloc because, frankly, they see bullshit like this and it makes them mad. Like, I get it. I'm still gonna do everything I can to turn out people to vote for her. But like, I look at this as someone who does political organizing, and all I see is my job getting exceptionally difficult and full of people who are like, oh, but we could vote for Jill Stein instead. And it's just like, no, fuck that. I think this all will play very well to the liberal base, but like the motivated people who actually turn out to volunteer and like give their time and energy, like I don't know if it's going to speak to them. I don't know if it's going to speak to the swing voters in Michigan.
For President of the United States, and to bring America what I believe the American people deserve, which is a new way forward, and turn the page on the last decade of what I believe has been contrary to where the spirit of our country really lies.
But the last decade, of course, the last 3.5 years has been part of your administration.
I'm talking about an era that started about a decade ago, where there is some suggestion, warped I believe it to be,
Hey, Ms.
that
Genderlin.
the measure of the strength of a leader is based on who you beat down, instead of where I believe most Americans are, which is to believe that the true measure of the strength of a leader is based on who you lift up. That's what's at stake as much as any other detail that we could discuss in this election.
Because we haven't had a chance to talk, I'm just curious, staying on President Biden, when he called you and said he was pulling out of the race, what was that like? And did he offer to endorse you right away, or did you ask for it?
It was a Sunday, so here, I'll give you a little too much information.
Go for it. There's no such thing, Madam Vice President.
My family was staying with us, and including my baby nieces, and we had just had pancakes and, Auntie, can I have more bacon? Yes, I'll make you more bacon. And then we were sitting down to do a puzzle. And the phone rang, and it was Joe Biden.
I'm no longer coconut pill.
And he told me what he
That's
had
fair.
decided to do.
Hey, Gavin
And,
Coonston, please. Thanks for subscribing.
I asked him, "Are you sure?" And he said yes. And that's how I learned about it.
And what about the endorsement? Did you ask for it?
He was very clear that he was going to support me.
So when he called to tell you, he said, I'm pulling out of the race and I'm going to support you.
Well, my first thought was not about me, to be honest with you. My first thought was about him, to be honest. I think history is going to show a number of things about Joe Biden's presidency. I think history.
Number one being that he presided over a genocide that he enabled and didn't do anything about. He'll be remembered alongside the likes of like Andrew Jackson. What a great legacy.
History is going to show that in so many ways it was transformative, be it on what we have accomplished around finally investing in America's infrastructure, investing in new economies, in new industries, what we have done to bring our allies back together
Probably a
and
bus,
have
Mr.
confidence
Mayock.
in
The
who we
bus,
are as
Mr.
America
Mayock.
and grow that alliance. what we have done to stand true to our principles, including the one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I think history is going to show not only has Joe Biden led an administration that has achieved those extraordinary successes, but the character of the man is one that he has been in his life and career, including as a president, quite selfless and puts the American people first.
I just have to ask you both about two standout moments, aside, of course, from the addresses that you both gave, but standout moments that were perhaps unexpected during the convention. You mentioned one of them, Governor. A moment that you shared, that the world shared with your son, Gus. You were speaking, the camera caught him, so incredibly proud of you, so emotional, saying, "That's my dad."
Yeah, I don't know as a father I could have ever imagined that.
How do you feel about your son being proud of you?
I'm grateful for so many reasons to be on this ticket, but that moment, to understand what was really important, to have my son feel as
You seem to be the only politician whose children are proud of you. Can you tell us more about that? It's the first time we've ever seen this.
sense of pride in me that I was trying to do the right thing. And it was, you try and protect your kids, it brings notoriety and things, but it was just such a visceral, emotional moment that I'm grateful I got to experience it, and I'm so proud of him. I'm proud of him. I'm proud of Hope. I'm proud of Gwen. She's a wonderful mother, and these are great kids. And I think the one thing is talking about the era we're in is our politics can be better. It can be different. We can show some of these things, and we can have families involved in this. And I hope that there was I hope people felt that out there, and I hope they hug their kids a little tighter, because you just never know, and life can be kind of hard.
And last question, Madam Vice President, the photograph that has gone viral. You were speaking, one of your grandnieces that you were just talking about was watching you accept the nomination. You didn't explicitly talk about gender or race in your speech, but it obviously means a lot to a lot of people, and that viral picture really says it. What does it mean to you?
I am running because I believe that I am the best person to do this job at this moment. For all Americans, regardless of race and gender. But I did see that photograph, and I was deeply touched by it. And you're right, it's the back of her head, her two little braids, and then I'm in the front of the photograph, obviously speaking. And it's very humbling. It's very humbling in many ways.
Did she talk to you about it afterwards?
Oh, she had a lot to talk about. She had a lot. She listened to everything, and she listens to everything.
Give you your hot takes?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Madam Vice President, Governor Walz, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having
Thank you,
us.
Dana. Thank you.
One of the main saving graces right now. So overall, I think, again, as I said, this will play well with liberals. It'll play well with centrists. It'll do what it's intended to do. But for people like us, for people who are predominantly the majority of my audience, I understand it's gonna make you mad. It's gonna make you sad. And I just want to tell you guys it's okay to feel those feelings. And I understand. And unfortunately, we are in the unenviable position of needing to get her elected to have the possibility of making things better. It's not that she will make things better, but it's that we will have the possibility of making things better. I can't stop thinking about her fracking response. Well, think of it this way. Her position on fracking is bad now because she's been influenced to that position. We've literally seen it go from being anti-fracking to being pro-fracking. And I think that means we can change it from being pro-fracking to anti-fracking. I don't think that Kamala Harris ideologically is married to any of her positions. And while that is that is very frustrating, it also means that there is a gigantic window of opportunity for us when it comes to pushing her to be better. I want I want Gaza protesters at like every single one of her rallies. Turn up, protest, make a stink about it. I want that pressure to like be 24/7 because I think genuinely I don't think that she is ideologically committed to Zionism in the same way Joe Biden is. And I think that if we keep that pressure up, that if she is elected, by the time election day comes around, she's going to want to do anything to get progressives to shut the fuck up about this issue. And I don't know if she can be changed, but the indications are that she can be. And the indications are that she has private thoughts that do not align with her public policy. And I think that we can influence her in positive ways. I don't know to what extent. I don't know a lot, a little. I don't know. All I know is that at the end of the day, we either have Kamala Harris as president or we have Donald Trump as president. And Kamala Harris, though she falls short in many, many ways, is someone who can be moved on issues and is on basically every issue more aligned with us than Joe Biden was. So either way you cut it, you get an improvement over our current situation if we go with Kamala Harris. It's not a panacea, and it's not going to fix all of our problems. It's not going to fix all of our geopolitical problems. It's not going to fix even many big problems, but it's going to leave a window of opportunity for us to move her to better positions. Yeah, it's progress. It might not feel like it, because for a brief, glorious window, it felt like anything was possible, but this is progress. It's just unsatisfying progress. Yeah, the average voter is very stupid, Brianna Huffman, but you know what? That doesn't matter. That's always been the case. Doesn't change what we have to do.
Durable Deck is coming to town. All the viewers gather round. Twitch and YouTube and swishy streams. All that content is bursting the seams. Politics, gaming, and plenty more. Your sense of fashion you'll adore. So grab your stuff and hop aboard. We're going straight to Jack's Discord. Viva Jack.